What's up YouTube, and welcome back to another Procreate tutorial where today I'm going to show you how you can create this pretty fun and kind of artistic and almost canvas-like design for today. As always, everything you're going to need for today is linked down below in the description. All requirements are completely free. You're going to need the palette, the canvas size, and my palette knife brush. It's a fantastic brush and it's so easy to create all of that texture on the mountain. So make sure to grab that using the links again in the description down below, which takes you over to my Patreon where you can grab everything. And while you're over there, make sure to check it out because that's where I post 3 exclusive tutorials every single month to my Patreon supporters, and the catalogue sits at well over 140 exclusive tutorials at the time of recording. And with 3 added every single month, that catalogue just continues to grow. Anyway, enjoy today's tutorial and let's get started. So of course we've got a slightly different canvas size today, and we're going to go ahead though and do a lot of similarities that we normally do. We'll go up to our actions in the canvas tab, add a drawing guide, edit that drawing guide, but I'm going to throw you off slightly because we're going to set the grid size to 400 just because of the canvas size today, and hit done, and then hit done again. So we've pretty much got 4 by 6 other than these exceptions on the side, but that's pretty much fine anyway. Now of course if you're using a slightly different canvas size, you may have to just continue to edit just to match up. My canvas size is my screen size, so that's what we've done today. A little bit of a change. Let's go to our brush. Let's set our brush to airbrushing in the soft brush. Let's go to our colors. Let's grab the second color on that top row. Size can be something fairly small, about 1 to 2%. I'm only using the soft airbrush because sometimes you get a little bit of a lighter look to it, a little bit of a softer look. I'm going to put a little dot there of sorts, just triple checking my brush. And I want to also put a dot sort of around about down here. And I want my entry point to be here. So that gives me my kind of triangle shape, and I can just build off of that and just build whatever kind of mountainous landscape I want to create. I'm going to come down and then maybe even another peak over here, let that kind of run off to the right, drag and drop my color in, and then from there you can go ahead and of course just keep tweaking. You can sharpen up certain areas, you can add more bumps and lumps, you can use your eraser of course as well, potentially, just in case you want to take away from something that you've added in. So let's just take a look here and up into there too. Drag a little bit of color into there, so we've got a little bit of a something. In fact, I may even increase that one a bit more. So I'm just going to color that in quickly. Soft airbrush, no stress, nice and easy. Lovely. So taking a look at that, that is done. Now, one thing I want you to check if you're done is whether or not you're subscribed to the channel. So many people watch these videos every single week but are not subscribed. So do me a favor, check below the video, triple check if you're subscribed, and while you're down there, drop a like on the video, and I'll carry on when you're done. No, I'm only joking. Come on then, let's carry on. So from there, I think I'm pretty good in terms of the shaping. I think we'll just adjust the top a tiny bit more. And if I hold down on my eraser, like so, if I then bring the brush size down, it switched it to the same brush that I was using with the paintbrush. So now I'm using the soft airbrush here, trying to create like a bit of a peak up there. I think that's fine. We can roll with that. And based off of how we do this anyway, you can always make changes later on. Let's go to our layers. Let's create a new layer, tap on it, clipping mask it. We'll go to our colors. We're going to grab the first color on that top row. It's a nice gray tone. We're going to go to our brush. Now for me, it's in the painting category. It's my palette knife brush. Otherwise, for you, it will be under imported right at the very bottom. When it's a singular brush that you add into Procreate, it usually goes into imported. If you add a collection, it goes right to the top of this pile here. So for me, it's in painting and it's the palette knife brush. It's my custom brush that I made. Enjoy. It's a lovely brush. Now I've got the brush set to 9% on the size there roughly. And we're just going to start adding in some lovely texture. In fact, I'm just going to go to the 5% there and just bringing in some lovely scraping here. I'm going to come down off the peak a little bit here, and I just want to really add the lighting to the right hand side pretty much, nothing towards the left at all. I'm going to let that come down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to roughly come from around about say here, and I'm going to be quite strong with it. I'm going to come across and show the kind of the land here, creating like little random avenues for the light to catch on the rocks, etc. I'm going to run that all the way down. Might switch it up to the 9% there just to sort of block this in a little bit easier and create some messiness all the way down to the bottom right. Little something like that. That's not too bad at all. In fact, I'll just go down to the smaller size again of 5% and just triple check I've packed in some color here on this edge. Yeah, I've left a little bit of divot here and there just for some nice messiness. You can always again hold down on your eraser. That switches it to the same brush, which means you can then equally go ahead and sort of erase into here, creating even more texture. The palette knife brush, I haven't used it for quite some time, but I saw a user using it again from one of my tutorials, and I said, you know what, I'm going to jump back into that brush. I love it. Now I'm just going to go ahead and set my brush size to 3% and just see if I can add in a tiny bit here, little sort of bits of detail potentially, but you don't need to do too much with this brush. The texture of it just does all the hard work for you with a mountain. It's so simple to do. So let's just leave it like that for a minute. Let's then go ahead and go to our layers, create another new layer, tap on it and clipping mask it also. Then go to your colors, grab the top of the third column. We'll go to a brush size of 5%, I think. And then from there, we can just create all of the avenues for the opposite side in the shade. And it doesn't need to be a lot. But one thing I am going to do is I'm going to kind of do a bit of a sort of diagonal angle, keeping the angle pretty consistent. I'm just going to wiggle my pen all the way along against there. And then what I end up doing is I end up creating this kind of beautiful ridge line here. And I can set my brush to like a 9% and let that kind of run a little bit further down. I'm not going to fill in the entirety of the area. And then over here, maybe it's a little bit more vertical as it is a little bit further back perhaps. I'll set the size a bit smaller again as I just make my way into a slightly smaller space, a little bit more of an angle over the top. But ultimately this little ridge line here can be nice and prominent. And that's all you need to do. Just create these very simple kind of triangular shapes with mountains. They can be very hard to do and they can be kind of tricky to understand perhaps, but it's something as simple as that is all you need to do. Let the brush do all the work. Go back to your eraser, get in there, start chopping away at it, hacking away through it, you know, at different angles. Let it get super scrapey. That's what this brush is purposely designed for. Let it get scrapey, take away, less will be more. And let's just maybe make sure with a slightly smaller brush size, like a 3%, if I can get that marker to stick around there. I just want to make sure that that's a little bit more purposeful over that little peak. Lovely. All the way down, maybe a little wiggle of something in here as well. But that's all we need to do. Something as simple as that for today's design anyway. Now that's actually the mountain done. We're working in the black and white areas before we add that little touch of really vibrant color later on. So let's actually go ahead and go to this layer here for our mountain, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. Then the bottom one out the two, make sure it's the bottom one. Go to your adjustments, go to gauge and blur and swipe from left to right until you get like this really high blur here. About 80% looks about bang on, to be fair. So if I go to 80%, then go to my cursor, use the option flip vertical and move this up to the very top, we end up with this fantastic black and white scene. And to be honest with you, I could imagine that being on a canvas of sorts. It's just very simple, minimalistic, and it looks so effective. Now, one thing I'm going to very quickly do is I'm going to go to my highlights here. So on the right hand side, I'm going to go to my adjustments, hue, saturation and brightness. And I'm just going to crank up the brightness ever so slightly up to around about, say, 58%. I may even come back to that later on, but 58%. Tap on my adjustments when I'm done. Just wanted that little bit of extra brightness. Now that's going to be our background as well. It's going to make things pop even more. Now the next thing I want to do is create these sort of echoing lines up the screen. So we're going to go to our mountain again, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. Go to the bottom one out the two for a minute. Go to your color and just grab bright pink in the top right. It doesn't really matter, any color, just drag it into the mountain itself. Then go to your cursor. This is really important. You tap in the middle line here and we want to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 4 should do it, maybe one more, 5. And then what you've done is every time you tapped, you've nudged it a pixel in that direction. Then what we'll do is we'll go to our layers. We will go ahead and tap on the dark mountain and go to select. Make sure color fill is grayed out like this, very important. Then go back to the pink layer, tap on it and use the option of clear. You've cleared the black shape from the one below. And because we've nudged it up, what that will do is, if I move this up, we end up with an outline. Super simple. So what we'll do is we'll swipe back to the left and duplicate it a few times until it's one big chunky line. It's nice and solid. So 4 times and then pinch it together. And then we'll go ahead and go to our cursor. Make sure you use snapping in the bottom left and you can just drag it up and you'll see the orange lines like so. You want to create your first kind of echo line here. Don't worry, the pink is only temporary. And then we're going to swipe that to the left and duplicate it again. Grab your cursor, move it up again, and your gap wants to get slightly bigger. So you want to take a look at the gap between the mountain and the first echo line, move it up. Now, this is where you may need to sort of manually go back to the first one, maybe nudge it a tiny bit closer towards the mountain. So maybe just not quite as far as I did initially. And then I'll go to the last one that we were working on, just move that back down again. There we go. Then I'll go ahead, swipe that to the left and duplicate it, grab my cursor, do it again. Again, the gap just needs to get ever so slightly bigger. I'm looking for the gap in between everything, almost looking as if the gap should double almost every time. There we go. Let's do that again. Swipe it to the left and duplicate it, moving it up, echo line again. It's not quite double, but it's definitely growing in its separation between it. Zooming out, we'll move that up once again, and because we've got snapping turned on, we don't need to worry. We can move upwards and make sure we hit the orange lines, which of course lets us know that we're nice and parallel to what we were moving initially. Now you can go all the way up to the very, very top if you want, and have one all the way up here. Now I personally didn't do this in my pre-practices. I only went as high as the one I've just done before. However, you can do it to the top if you wish. What you can do though is, of course, just keep tweaking. So I can move the last one up just a bit more, maybe over into that top row of our drawing guide, and just go back down them. So it may take a little bit of time just to readjust them, go back down, see if you can just make some tweaks and see to the point where you're happy with it. So I'm just going to keep making a couple of tiny tweaks. To be fair, it's actually not a million miles off of what I was anticipating it looking like anyway. So I'm going to leave it like that. Now, the one thing you then want to do is pinch all of the lines together. We'll go ahead and swipe it to the left and duplicate it. And then if you grab your cursor, you may want to make the lines slightly chunkier. And if you do, because we've duplicated the layer, if I tap again at the top in the middle on that line to move it up a pixel, so avoiding that little spot there, every time I tap, I'm chunking out the line a tiny bit more, just making it a little bit more visible. And then I can pinch those two together. Then I'll tap on it, I'll alpha lock it, I'll go to my colors, I'll double tap in the top left now to select white, go back to the layer, tap on it and fill it, and then tap on it and turn off your alpha lock. Now at this stage, you may also need to go ahead and grab your gradient in the background there, grab your cursor, and perhaps use freeform just to stretch it down a little bit. You really want those lines to be visible at the bottom, so you may need to drag and stretch out your gradient quite a bit just so that the white lines are visible again. So let's keep going down a tiny bit more and tap on my cursor when I'm done. And then that just gives me a little bit more grey in behind the mountain. Now the next stage is a really fun one. So let's actually turn off our lines for a minute. We want to go ahead and create a gradient for the background. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer in front of our gradient here. So the gradient of grey. We're going to go to our colours and we're going to grab the red in the bottom left of the palette. Your brush can still be the palette knife brush or soft airbrush, anything you like, to be honest with you. Just set your size to around about 50%. And let's just really press quite firm, but also a little bit light at the same time towards the top. You want to just put in some colour, then switch it to the orange. And we're just creating a gradient of colour. That's all we're doing. Just packing in the colour, overlapping the previous one, giving yourself enough space at the top so that you can overlap the yellow now. Then make sure the yellow has a good strong band of colour, and again just blend that up. It doesn't need to be perfect in any way. Then go to your green, get some green in there. A bit random for a sky, but it's just meant to be an artistic piece today. It's not meant to necessarily be representative of the real world or a sunset or anything like that. It's just an artistic free piece today, which is quite fun to do for a change. So once you've got your bands of colour, you can then start having so much fun and blurring them together using adjustments, Liquify. Then use any of these settings here, go crazy. 12 right, look at the size of my brush, the pressure, distortion, etc. And then you can just go ahead and just drag your pen across here. You can go up, you can go down, you can just create crazy artwork and just really let it go nuts. Now the only thing you want to try to preserve, and I'm going to bring my size down now, is you want to preserve a little bit of that gradient. You don't want it to get too much where the blue's all the way at the bottom and you're losing that kind of rainbow-like effect. Use push, set the size to something small, and look, you can go like that and just flick it all the way through. If you want to bring the reds or the greens up, should I say, even the yellows or even the reds, you can push, you can bring the blues down on this side over here. You can create some more red, you can expand on the oranges, maybe just a random fun gradient. But what you really want to get is by sort of using twirl a bit more, you want some of those little minor bits of detail in there in terms of the twirls and the flow of everything, letting them get really fun and blended. But it almost looks like an oil on the ground almost. I think it looks really fun and very interesting to look at. Anyway, when you're done with your gradient, you want to make sure you're happy with it. If you're not, perhaps you've added too much green or too much yellow, or you've lost too much, just go back to your layer here, grab your colors and grab some yellow. I need to put some more yellow in here, for example, and I need a bit of green up here, not quite as much as I had before. There we go, a bit more of a green band. And I've got my blues, and I'm just going to repeat liquify, twirl, and just let that go crazy and just keep having fun. So I'm just going to keep messing around with mine just for a minute longer so I can catch back up with you, and we'll be good to go. So I've twirled, I've pushed, I've done everything. You don't even have to do that, by the way. We're going to tap on our adjustments when we're done, and then we're going to have some fun by tapping on this layer, adding a mask to it. Tap on the mask and invert it to black. A mask hides or shows, and because we've put black there, it's hiding everything. And because we've got it black, we can then paint in with white and reveal it. So we're going to double tap in the top left to select white. We're going to change our brush. We're going to go to inking and the syrup brush. Now I've got the opacity set to 100 and my size is set to 80. This is a pressure sensitive brush. So what you need to bear in mind is, of course, this is completely you and your manual sort of process of this. I want you to start really lightly, and this will take multiple attempts, honestly. It did for me as well. I'm going to turn back on my lines just so I can see them as a guide. And we're just going to sort of start here. I'm going to sort of run really lightly and then start to get a little bit heavier and then just let that run in behind. Beautiful, simple, straightforward, a splash of color. It looks really effective. Now from there, you can then work in some additional things. Now, I say I'm happy with that. What I would do is I would actually swipe that to the left and duplicate it, turn off the bottom one, and then the top one, I would just tap on the mask and clear it, and then tap on the mask and invert it back to black and go again. So I always keep what I consider was my best one and then just redo it again and see if I can create something even nicer perhaps, and then see what it comes out like. So I know that that wasn't better than the last one I made, and I'm trying not to go towards the edge of the canvas either. I want to make sure that my sort of line work here stays within the boundary of our piece. That looks okay. I think it needs to have like a gradual increase in size, so it gets like I'm getting really firm with my pressure, and that I just keep going too wide at the beginning. So I'm just keeping this in for you because you can see what I'm looking for. I love to do this with my tutorials at the minute. It's just showing you ultimately what I do wrong so that you can perfect it in your own work. I quite like this particular version. That one looks quite nice. And then what I'll do is I'll compare. I'll turn that one off. I'll turn that one back on. Add the mask back in. Yep, that one definitely doesn't look as good. So I'm just going to go again. And I'll be back with you in a sec when I've got my final one. I can go ahead and pinch the mask to the line. So that's now one layer. It's been cut out. It's perfectly good to go. Then what I want to go ahead and do is on the white lines, tap on them, add a mask. And then you want to go ahead and tap on your shape here for your spiral, tap on it and select it. Again, make sure color fill is grayed out like so. Then go back to your layer and go back to this mask that you just added to the lines. Make sure your color is now set to black at the bottom of the disc. And to make life a bit easier, just set your brush to calligraphy in the monoline brush. It's just a solid brush, it'll make life nice and easy. Now, what you want to go ahead and do now is start to paint out the areas where you want your twirl to come in and out. So what we're looking for is little elements where they overlap. Do you want it to come in and out? So I'm going to leave that line, I reckon. And then I'll just erase this line here, getting rid of that. So it now overlaps. And then because it overlaps, I'm going to imagine that it cuts across there. Do I want that to slot in between there? I think that looks pretty cool. So I'm actually going to leave that. I'll get rid of this bit here. So I'm watching how that line then intertwines, and look at how they kind of merge together. It's really fun. So we've got that going across there. That sits under there. That's nice. I think that one can stay above. This one here really has quite a lot of length to it here. So you've got to take a look at that and say, oh, well, do I want to get rid of that? Or would that just be a bit too much to have all that exposed? So for me, I think I'm going to go ahead and leave this line here because we do have a shadow to add in a minute, and that could look quite nice like that. Likewise, this one here, there's a lot going on. So I'm just going to keep making my way through and just see which ones look good. So I'm going to go ahead, for example, and get rid of this line here. I'm just going to triple check my color is set to black, which it is. I'll get rid of that. That then tucks under there, comes back through here. I don't hate that at all. Down here, we'll get rid of it on the end here. So just get rid of it there. I think there's some transparency in my brush, but either way, it's fine. And then that comes across. You can even do lots of the smaller ones if you want to. So I could tap and get rid of that a little bit in there as well. You're just trying to really intertwine it. It's not to say it needs to be absolutely everywhere though, you know, you don't have to overdo it to a degree. So that can come across, and I think, you know what, we'll tuck it underneath there so that it sits under, and you get that nice echo wrapping around our spiral. You can always go into other areas later if you need to potentially and just make a change. So that's that done in terms of the line work. What we now need to go ahead and do is add the shadows. So what we'll do is we'll swipe this layer to the left and duplicate it. So that was your line work with your mask on it. Tap on this part here for your layer and invert it so it's now set to black. Then tap on that and clipping mask it to the actual spiral itself. So your dark lines now are attached. What you then want to do is go to your cursor, and we want to just move this down, or whatever angle you want your shadows to come from. Now, because the sort of lighting here is from the right hand side, if we want to make this cohesive, we just move the lines across down to the bottom left slightly, like so. And then you can tap on your cursor when you're done. Your shadows are now following the same direction as the whole piece. It's cohesive. Now, if we tap on our layer here, we go to our adjustments, we go to Gaussian blur. We'll swipe from left to right, we'll blur those lines out. We just want to have a nice soft shadow to them. I think around about sort of 6 to 8% looks pretty good. It gives you a nice solid amount of shadow that it looks nice and effective, but it's not too dull at the same time. Now, if you want that to stand off even more, you can go ahead and change the blend mode from normal to multiply. And then if you want to, you can swipe that layer to the left and duplicate it, get some really quite intense shadows in there. I would urge you to be honest, lean a little bit more towards the lighter side. You know, if you're going to duplicate it, maybe just bring the top one to like an extra 20% just to boost it, but it's totally up to you. I always love giving you the option as the creator. Another shadow that we're going to create is if we go to our line work here for our little swirl, if we swipe it to the left and duplicate it, the bottom one out the two, tap on it, alpha lock it, go to your colors, just double tap at the bottom of the disc to select black, then go back to the layer, tap on it and fill it. Now, if you see any color change with your actual shape here, don't worry, just swipe it to the left and duplicate it, and your spiral now will kind of be duplicated in its opacity. The bottom one out the two again, the dark one, tap on it and turn off the alpha lock. Go to your adjustments, go to Gaussian blur and swipe from left to right, I reckon around about sort of 10%. Then grab your cursor, drag your shadow in the same direction as your lighting, which should be down towards the sort of bottom left a tiny bit. So a little bit down, bottom left. Get that lighting matching up with the rest of the piece. And then at that point, you really want to take a look at your layer and bring its opacity up or down. I think a subtle shadow looks quite effective here. It does enough to make it stand off. You don't need to do it too much. For me, around about 50 to 60% looks really good. That's a bit too much, to be honest. Subtlety sometimes is key. I'm going to go to actually around about sort of 40 to 45. That's just my preference. Then we can also add some pretty subtle shadows, but they're pretty fun as well. On your layer here for your white lines, create a new layer and tap on it and clip it to the white lines. With your brush color set to black and your brush set to airbrushing and the soft brush, let's set our opacity to something quite low, around about 30%, and our size only needs to be fairly small, around about 2%. We can zoom in, and then if the light's coming across, you could just put like a little bit of a shadow here. I'm just drawing as we speak to make that line kind of just tuck underneath, so it looks like it gets even more 3D depth to it. So it just disappears underneath there. You add a bit of a shadow as it just disappears underneath your swirl. You could end up with a little bit of a shadow here too, just to put that underneath. Tiny little blends of color, just little subtleties. Doesn't need to be heavy. That's why we've got 30% brush opacity. You can do a tiny bit more if you feel like it's necessary, but to me, again, I think the subtlety looks fantastic. We'll just put a little bit under there too. In fact, I won't do that one. Maybe a tad under that one. And as you get into the lighter area, the shadows are going to look a bit too aggressive, so you may have to tone them down. But otherwise, all of those ones look pretty good to me. That's the good positioning. There's a few things that we could tidy up. So for example, the black lines, I'm going to get rid of the extra multiply layer. The black lines here, if you go to the mask for it, so these are the black lines, the shadows on top of the swirl, If we go to the mask, make sure your color's set to black and your opacity set to 100% with the soft airbrush and down to about 2%. Notice here how we get a little bit of a shadow here because the line is above. We'll get rid of that. And we're looking for some of those top edge shadows here. Now, if your line comes across, don't get rid of it like there. But if your line doesn't go on top of your swirl, you can just erase those little bits of excess that just sit along there. Little bit of excess there, little bit of excess there. And when you're done, go up to your actions, turn off your drawing guide, pinch your two fingers, go full screen with 4, and you end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed this kind of pretty artistic piece. It's just meant to be something a little bit more fun, a little bit colorful, and also fit in a little bit with that landscape style that I love. If you want even more tutorials from me, you can come and join me over on Patreon, because that's where I post 3 exclusive tutorials every single month to my Patreon supporters, and the catalogue sits at well over 140 exclusive tutorials at the time of recording, with 3 added every single month. That catalogue just continues to grow. And if you enjoyed this video here on YouTube, you will love this one on the screen now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.